A U.S. attorney who served, get this, for less than an hour is now suing the Trump administration over his firing. Roger Rogoff is asking a federal court to reinstate him as U.S. attorney for the Western District of Washington. Last week, a U.S. district court appointed him to the post after it sat vacant for months. Then, 54 minutes later, President Trump fired Rogoff and accused the judges of failing to consult the White House. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche defended the termination, saying, quote, district court judges can appoint a temporary U.S. attorney and the president can fire them. CBS News legal contributor and Loyola Law School professor Jessica Levinson is here to answer the question of basically who decides this constitutional question. So, Jessica, how are U.S. attorney positions filled?
So the typical way that they're filled is that the president nominates and then the Senate decides whether or not to confirm. It's very similar to what happens with respect to federal judges. But there is also, of course, this avenue where by congressional statute, the attorney general has the power to appoint somebody as interim, basically temporary U.S. attorney, but only for 120 days. Then the federal statute says after that 120 days, a group of federal judges from that judicial district can appoint somebody. And we've seen this, frankly, play out far more than was typical in other administrations. Of course, what just happened, as you said, is that there was somebody who was appointed to one of the the district court judges appointed a U.S. attorney. 54 minutes later, the president says you're fired. And as you said, this really does become a who decides question.
So does the president then have the power to remove a U.S. attorney?
Yes. And so I think the legal tension here comes with the fact that when you're talking about an appointment, as we just discussed, that really is a process where the Constitution and federal law envisions that you're sharing power. Either it's the president and the Senate for a permanent position, or it's the attorney general for a temporary position, and then federal judges. But what we have right now is a president who is looking at people who are appointed by a group of federal judges and then saying, you're fired. The question is whether or not he can do that or if it undermines the appointment power sharing structure.
So what's at stake here in this lawsuit?
So I think what's really at stake is, frankly, what's at stake in so many other areas, which is the power of this president. And in this case, it's the power of the president to fire these heads of federal prosecutors' offices, these U.S. attorneys, and if he can do so in a way that essentially undermines, again, the Constitution and the federal law that says the president cannot do this by himself.
Okay, Jessica Levinson, thank you.